Hey everybody, welcome to the Cripescast, sponsored by Jolly Good Soda, the best gosh darn soda this side of the Mississippi, or that side if you're asking me. This is the podcast, ladies and gentlemen, where we talk to people for and or from the Midwest. And geez Louise, how's everyone doing out there? Who got a deer, huh? We had the opening weekend of deer hunting. Now, if you're a vegan, sorry about this. You might want to fast forward. But I saw a lot of nice racks on the backs of trucks over the past weekend. Everyone did good. And if you had a nice rack, I did roll down my window. And in customary Midwest fashion, I says, hey, that's a nice rack you got back there. Only a few people took it the wrong way. We got a great interview today with MKE Black. We've got Ayrton Bryan and Rick Banks, who run the organization. It's a great app that allows you to support Black-owned businesses in Milwaukee, and they're going to expand outwards. And just hearing their mentality about how, we often hear about these societal issues with respect to race relations in this country, whether it's the police or schooling or, redlining neighborhoods and all that sort of stuff. And this is just presents a very practical way that everybody can, do something as simple as download an app, and you're already helping and actually helping the problem get better. So it's a cool thing. It's cool talking to these guys because they're very creative in their approach to making the world a better place. And it's really an honor to highlight them. Before we get to that interview, I want to thank all of you sincerely from the bottom of my heart for buying a copy of the Midwest Survival Guide over the past couple weeks. We did end up getting on the New York Times bestseller list. That's just like one of those moments where I'm sitting there like, holy smokes, geez Louise, I don't deserve this. But and I still kind of have that feeling. Is that imposter syndrome? I don't know. Got to ask a therapist. But I don't feel like I deserve it. I feel like I just give all the credit to all of you for supporting me and this whole thing. And it's honest to Pete. It's a real honor to have all you listening. So thank you for doing that. And if anyone is hungry, I do have extra venison in my chest freezer. Okie dokes. I didn't shoot a deer yet this year. Although I will say, it's a very environmental way to get your meat for the year, low carbon footprint to go from, the land a couple 60 miles away to the freezer. Very environmental. Or what's even more environmental, you see a fresh one on the side of the road and you say, oh, geez, tenderized. Okay, what are we doing here? No, bottom line, did I finish thanking all of you? I'll do it one more time in typical Midwest fashion. Thank you for buying that book and helping get on the New York Times bestseller list. If anyone needs their gutters cleaned, let me know. And if you're not following the Cripescast, make sure you do that at Cripescast, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Also, we got shows coming up, 2 big shows this weekend. Oh, I'm really excited on the show in Green Bay. This is I haven't told anyone this yet, but Dante actually, who works for me, does the merch stuff primarily. He came up with this idea. I bought this boat a few months ago. For the first time boat owner, I bought a boat off Craigslist. It's a 59 Alumacraft with a 59 Johnson Javelin engine on it. Most of you, that's going to mean nothing. But to some of you, that's a collector's item right there. And we're going to auction it off at the Green Bay show, which still has some tickets. It's in a big theater. It's in the Rush. I can never say it right. It's in Green Bay, Rush Center. And we're going to auction it off. Proceeds are going to CVI, that Center for Veterans Issues, and the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Milwaukee area. So you can support those 2 causes because we're going to auction off during the Craigslist Kicker portion of the show. And so it's going to be a ton of fun. So you can still get tickets to Green Bay if you want to do that. Be involved in that madness. And we emailed them today. They said, can we bring the boat inside the deal? And they said, yeah. So that was supposed to be a surprise, but surprise. Anyway, it's going to be a fun show. So that's Friday night this week. If you want that boat, boy, it's time to get it. And I'll sign it. The SS Hope. That's what we call it. So if you want it, there you have it. Oh, we got a comment. Thanks to everybody for rating the podcast and leaving comments, by the way. That's pretty slick of you. Finally, 5 stars. I absolutely love the Cripescast. Being born and raised in Minnesota is so great to finally have some true representation of how great the Midwest is. All of the guests are so interesting and entertaining. Thank you, Charlie, for making my commute and drives to the lake cabin fun. I also am now aware that I say, "Ope." 1,000 times per day. Oofta, keep her moving. No, you keep her moving. Aw, jeez Louise, that's from Piper Bean 512. Thanks, Piper Bean. Appreciate that. You keep her moving, and you watch out for deer. And also, if you're looking to get people stuff for the holidays, we got a bunch of cool cribbage boards and dice cups and all of that. Koozies, t-shirts, sweatshirts, ugly Christmas sweatshirts that say watch out for reindeer. Bunch of it. It's all made in the USA, printed in Wisconsin. You can get it at manitowocminute.com or cripescast.com. All right, it is time now for my interview with the fellas from MKE Black. Hope you enjoy. How have you guys been?
Good. Just plugging away. Really holiday season, so it's crazy. Like 18 different, like, I'll see you before Christmas. So lots of that, and then just balancing all the other stuff. It's just like I act like it's the last time I'll ever see them, but like it's just back-to-back friend hangouts.
Right. Yeah, that. There is a lot of that, especially around this time of year. And what kind of stuff business-wise are you doing to sort of wrap up before the year's out?
Yeah. So from an MKE Black perspective, we are currently kicking off our fundraising campaign. Rick will give really the background around that, just how the organization started. But we recently hit our 2-year anniversary, and so are just moving into a phase where we can really see ourselves expanding what we do to have a full-time dedicated staff. So it's super exciting.
That's great. Yeah, Rick, do you want to kind of jump on that?
Yeah, sure. So I guess you want me to start from the beginning and tell you how we started and all that?
Yeah, you know what? I was going to get to that soon, but let's just hop in and say, how did MKE Black begin and where is it at today?
So MKE Black started informally as an idea with myself and my business partner, or the co-founder, Paul Wellington. So separately, we both had the idea to start when I was in college studying in political science and economics, and thinking about how can I bring the knowledge back to the community, and thinking about how you need to follow the dollar, right? And figure out where the money's going, where it's not going. And then come to the conclusion that if we're going to have strong communities, then we need to have strong businesses, and particular businesses owned by the people in the community. And so for me, it was a community organizing effort, with my background being in community organizing and political organizing and things like that. And so didn't have the capability to build the app, though. The idea was like, we need the database to know where the Black-owned businesses are so that we can support them. But I had no technical knowledge, no capability to make it happen. And so a couple years later, my friend Paul takes me in the middle of the night one night, like, I have this idea called MKE Black. It'd be a database of Black-owned businesses. And we could promote things through our social media and stuff like that. And I call it MKE Black. And I was like, I had the same idea, except as a mobile app. And so we put the two ideas together, built the website and the mobile app. By we, I mean Paul mostly. He came up with all the technical stuff as far as using a platform I'll call Buildfire to basically build it from scratch, whereas opposed, originally we were talking to some app developers and they were like $10,000, $30,000. And we were like, we don't have that money. So Paul made it happen and we've been rolling ever since. We launched the app on Apple. No, we launched it on Android first in February of 2020. And then we launched it on Android. Did I say Android? We launched it on Android in February of 2020, Apple in June of 2020. And since then, we've been blessed to have been joined by some great folks who joined us to really build a nonprofit ecosystem around the app. So Ayrton joined us shortly afterwards, and I think June of last year. And he's brought on a lot of good energy as far as forging partnerships and initiatives related to supporting Black-owned businesses. And that's led to the creation of a lot of different events. Like we held a block party last year related to Get Out the Vote, but also using it to highlight local Black-owned businesses. And we kind of continue that throughout the year in what is now our vendor market series, which showcases local Black-owned businesses and gives them free space to sell their wares and make money, and really just becoming the connectors of different institutions that want to support Black-owned businesses. So we've partnered with entities like the Bucks and the Brewers and Northwestern Mutual and other entities that want to do more than just talk the talk, but walk the walk. And so how can they better be suppliers or, have Black-owned vendors as they're spending this capital that they have. And so we've been able to really be connectors in that aspect. We're trying to go full time. We're all volunteers. So we got a team of 9 volunteers who are working, 5 to 10 hours a week to make this thing happen and keep it going. And now we're just trying to get to a point where we can make it a full-time endeavor.
And can you go into the importance of supporting Black-owned business with respect to, we hear about sort of the cycles of things, of how we have to break these cycles of inequality, which, it's connected to everything from schools to policing and all of that, and how business is integral in doing that.
Yeah, I can start, and Ayrton, I'm sure we could add on more. For me, it's like you said, there's so many different aspects to it, right? And what ultimately comes down to, like, there is a stat that I heard or read recently, some kind of prediction that was like, collectively Black net worth would be 0 in 2050 or something like that. And some people have said that that's a hyperbole and that it's not as bad as that. But the gist is that, like, the income gap and the wealth gap is so large that, in some cases it might be going backwards. And so if we want to be serious about closing the income gap, if we want to be serious about closing the wealth gap and ensuring that we have financially stable Black communities, then we have to support the businesses that come out of those communities. We have to do it intentionally. And I think that's why we built MKE Black. And I think that it's important that not just Black people take the time and the effort to support these businesses, but people of all cultures and genders and everybody to come into the community to see that there are great things happening. Because once we can start to change the narrative around the things that are happening in Black communities, then it'll have a cycle effect of, okay, there's great things happening. We can do more. We can invest more in these neighborhoods. And then we'll see things turn around in terms of crime and safety and housing and all this stuff. But it ultimately has to start with the economic stability of the Black community.
If I can add on to that, a stat that was really powerful for me that I learned a few years ago was that at the end of slavery, let's take Black population, 11% of the people had 1% of the resources. That has changed in over 100 years to 1.5% of the resources. So 11% of the people have 1.5% of the resources, which truly isn't a way to, I'd say, sustainably hold yourself up. And then looking at things like financial capital, social capital, all of that, it gives you the space to take your life and say, now let me have some times where I can enjoy, where I can share, where I can give some of that honest heart to my culture. I think, Charlie, you're a perfect example. I watched your video about the spa quick trip this weekend on Instagram, but then you're also able to have dialogues like these. And when you're able to combine that social capital, that financial capital to build a life around yourself, you're just able to share and give and bring so much perspective to other people. And so the more cultures that can do that, the better. And so here at MKE Black, we're committed to helping the Black business community and Black professionals that work for other businesses and enterprises. But with that, in a cross-cultural lens, it's really looking at seeing how we can all work together better and keep having that really shared pool of ideas where we can respect each of our uniqueness, but then also share ideas, perspectives, and just have a chance to, I'd say, really have a good time with each other.
Right. Yeah, I think that a lot of, I don't know, my audience is predominantly white. And I think that a lot of people, just generally speaking, any people, it's all about just recognition and or what am I trying to say? It's not recognition, it's familiarity. So if you are familiar with a group of people, or you're familiar with a certain culture, there's a lot more benefit of the doubt given. And I think a lot of times, there's just not enough familiarity that perhaps the white community of the Midwest, or Wisconsin will take specifically, may have with the Black community. And so I think finding those bridges where we can do that is very important. One of the bridges is through business. I think that's the easiest one. Good food, good gyms, good music stores, whatever it is, because you're going there not necessarily oh, I'm doing the right thing, that's only sustainable for so long. But it's finding these actual benefits, and there's so many, which you both do an amazing job of highlighting. Is that your intent in all of this?
Yes, absolutely. When we started off, we actually set out to become a tourist organization, more or less, for the Black community in Milwaukee. And so we were looking at all these other entities that would promote Milwaukee, and we would always feel like the Black community was left out of these discussions. And we're like, there's so many great community assets in the Black community, so many great restaurants, so many great murals and sites that people who come to Milwaukee could visit, but it's not being showcased in the main tourist entities. And so we wanted to fill that gap and encourage people to come and visit the restaurants and the activities and the museums like the Black Historical Society and the America's Black Holocaust Museum, which is soon to be opening. Because there's, like you said, there's a lot of great things happening. And once you cross that bridge and you see it breaks down those barriers. Unfortunately, a lot of people, their only exposure to the Black community is through the news. And, if you ever watch the news, you're not going to get the best representation of the Black community through that. And so we've taken pride in not just showcasing the local Black-owned businesses that are doing great things in our community, but just showcasing any positive Black news that is happening in our community. And so when there's, a mural that's been painted or whatever else we can think of, we're going to share those stories because we want people to come into the community, to not be afraid and to experience the great positive things that the people who live here experience every day. And just like you said, like when you travel outside the country, right, you go and you experience the food and you experience the culture and you have it changes your perception of that area. We want the same thing to happen for the Black community in Milwaukee and in other parts of Wisconsin.
Yeah. Anything to add, Art?
Yeah, I'd say around that, one of the most exciting parts, I think, of the app, and I always like to add that they finally told me the story. They were either going to invest in an app or a bus right in 2020. And so talk about luck of a great coin flip to end up with an app. But the thing that's so amazing is that it empowers people to make conscious decisions. Like, I think the most important stuff that happens with MKE Black a lot of times doesn't have anything directly to do with us. It's that ability to say, oh, I'm out today and I want to grab lunch, and I know I also want to stop by a hair supply store and, like you said, maybe a music shop. You can intentionally decide. I was just able to find a Black-owned plant shop this weekend because I accidentally killed all mine. I don't have a green thumb.
I got that same problem, by the way. I got that same problem.
I know I can't have all the skills, but being able to make those decisions and have that ability to just make choices in that regard is so powerful. And it, like you said, it gives you a chance to get a feel for that community. And I know one of the things that blew us away last year is when we did our gift boxes. Predominantly white people bought the gift boxes. And so it just goes to show that they wanted to experience that culture. And the next step is, going to those spaces and understanding that a lot of the perceptions we have around, I shouldn't be here, is just that. It's a perception. And so as we warm up, really just having and making our communities that much bigger.
In other cities, there are things like Chinatown or Little Italy. How are those cultural city centers different from the Black community in Milwaukee? And would that be a fair comparison, or is that different?
I'd say it's different and fair at the same time. And so I'll say start with this different because Milwaukee is, I believe, 40% Black or 30% Black. So there's a very large percent of the population is Black. And so as a result, you've got Black people all over the city, but you have a large concentration on the north side of Milwaukee. And so that's a spread out over a larger land area. You'll see, businesses here, businesses there, but not necessarily in one central location. The other thing that's a little bit different about it is it's weird. I don't know how to put it, but basically, because it comes down to that wealth gap, right? Because the Black community doesn't have as much wealth, so much of the ownership in our community is not owned by people in our community. And so as a result, even though there are Black businesses here and there, you do have a lot more integration of other cultures having locations in those inside the Black community. That said, there's a similarity in the sense that we are working towards rebuilding that because there was something in Milwaukee called Brownsville, and that was basically Black Chinatown in Milwaukee. And it was the locations vary depending on who you talk to, but the rebuilding efforts are centering around basically the corner of Martin Luther King Drive and North Avenue, and kind of going south and going west, and sort of going north from there as well. And so we've seen, just even in like the last 2-3 years, a renaissance of Black businesses locating on Martin Luther King Drive. You have the America's Black Holocaust Museum that's reopening next year on Vel Phillips and North Avenue. And there's RFPs and plans being put in place for new businesses along North Avenue. And so we're starting to rebuild that hub of local Black-owned businesses so that, you know, when folks do visit, there's a place that's not far from downtown that's connected to the historical center of the Black community. And it will now be the present day Black Chinatown, for lack of a better term.
Sure. Yeah. And I think that there's this, you have folks, white folks who want to do the right thing and support, but there's this fine line too of like, of gentrification, and like when an area gets cool and it gets, a lot of great businesses there. Are you concerned? Is that a concern of gentrification, and how could a consumer not fall into that trap?
Yeah, there's definitely that concern. I know that there's been a lot of concern, like as they talked about taking the Milwaukee streetcar up Martin Luther King Drive. And also there's been concerns just recently as property values in that area have started to go up and potentially start to displace some long-term homeowners. I think that ultimately, and it's up to, my perspective is that it'll ultimately be up to the government to put in place policies that will, mitigate that effect. Things like changes in exemptions to property tax increases and stuff like that. But with the system that we have in place, it's a weird system where, you either get the neighborhood improvement and property values go up, or you get kind of the same thing and property values stay where they are. Ultimately, I think that it's about ownership. And so if we can maintain the ownership of those businesses by people in the community, if we can maintain the ownership of those businesses of the properties by people in the community, then ultimately that increase in property value will benefit the community because they're the ones who own it. And if incomes grow up with that, if we continue to benefit from that increase of people coming to those businesses, then we'll be able to manage the increase in property values. But for those people who aren't the business owners and who are just residents and might be income restricted, I think it's ultimately going to be up to government policy to try to come in and make sure that we're not displacing them. But as consumers, I don't think that folks should be worried. If you want to support, come support because we need it.
Yeah. Right.
And as a piggyback on the consumer end of things, just staying aware. I mean, staying, I'd say politically active in terms of knowing it's not necessarily going to every council meeting. That would be overwhelming, but having an idea when you're taking that opportunity to vote, but even in a day-to-day, just kind of what Rick was pointing to, I know something that's huge right now and really developing is the ability for businesses to get new ways of capital like crowdfunding or community conscious bank loans. And so being a part of that, and even if it's making suggestions of, hey, what are your starting the conversation? What are your plans to expand, or how are things going? Like if you hear about something that you think might be useful to a business owner, having a conversation and just throwing it out to the world, they can easily say no, or it could be something that completely turns the game around for them. So I'd say really considering that as a consumer, it's not just a one-way interaction. Like your social capital is invaluable in any situation to me and can be so powerful to share.
So to be a little bit more specific, perhaps, because maybe that there's somebody out there who's got money and interested in investing and wants to help in this capacity. And let's say, there's a house that's kind of gone into disrepair or something. Would them, and let's say they were white, would them buying that house and fixing it up or whatever and then renting it, would that be a problematic thing? Or would it be, if you're going to buy the house, live in the community, or would even living in the community not be preferred? Like because I feel like I've actually heard this. We did another podcast on, and we were discussing this, and I got that question from, I believe they were an investor. So what would you say to that investor who has some money, wants to help improve a community, happens to be a white guy? What advice would you give them on that particular scenario?
I would say if you're going to, it's weird. It's such a fine line. Like, I think you kind of hit it on the head there. Where like there's going to be intricacies, right, and nuances to each of those options, right? And so like if you purchase the property and rent it out, it depends. Like, so we're talking about a vacant property, right? This isn't like a property that is occupied. If it's a vacant property, I feel like ultimately it helps to have those vacant properties fixed up and someone living in it. That deters, crime, and it increases the, the physical appeal of the entire neighborhood. And so I think the preferred option is to, fix it up and live in it if you're going to do anything. If not, then fix it up to sell it to somebody else who might be from that community and already living in the community, or who will, act as an integral member of that community. And then the least favorable option is probably to fix it up and rent it out. Because ultimately my mind goes to cash flows and like, where's the money going? So right. There's money in the neighborhood that if you're not in the community or, financially investing in the community in other ways, then now that's creating a cash outflow situation.
I see.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Where does the money go at the end of the day?
Right. But once you hit it on cash flow, it's nail on the head. I would say either option of either living in that community, or if you're renting it out, even if it's a point that you go out there like once a week, what you could physically do, like investing back in that area, the businesses that make that area part of it, because you now have that plot, and it's like, what are you building up around you, or is the money moving to a different neighborhood completely in that case? So there are ways to do all of it. It's just about that consciousness that Rick says about getting it back as part of the community at some level.
I appreciate this discussion, because I think it's a key thing that we have to talk about and figure out. But like I said, ultimately, I think it's going to require some pushing of government agencies and actions to really make sure that we can develop without displacing.
Yeah. On that note, I don't know if you want to get into the weeds too much, but is there a initiative currently out there, or one that you think would be beneficial?
Actually, yeah. So for the around Brownsville, around Bruce Hill, Highland Park, and Harambe, there is actually an anti-displacement fund that is, I believe, managed by the Greater Milwaukee Foundation. It might be the Walnut Way. I know the city maybe put some money into it. Other entities are putting some money into it. And so if this is a topic that folks are, really interested in, lending some financial support to, in addition to MKE Black, donate to this anti-displacement fund, which helps homeowners in their area who had their property values increased. I think it's got to be at least, I'm just guessing, honestly, I don't know. It's a substantial amount. Like, it's got to be like 20% or something like that in 1 year. Then they will give you funding to help you support paying your property, the difference between the property taxes or something like that. And so that's a great initiative, I think, is being at least a kind of a Band-Aid solution. we're getting into the politics now. Long term, I think that we have to change our tax structure entirely in the state of Wisconsin, where, maybe people only are locked in for their property tax rate. And maybe the amount of increases is capped or something. The amount of your assessment increases is capped after the purchase price or something like that. Something where they provide some stability for homeowners to be able to afford their home, no matter what happens around you. Because more or less, it's not like people are investing millions of dollars into their properties and all of a sudden now their assessment is going up. It's like, oh, somebody built $1 million complex next to me and now my property is worth something more. Like, that's just not fair in my opinion. Yeah.
And we have rent control. I mean, you hear that in a lot of big cities, there's rent control. And so we don't, not here in Wisconsin. Right. It's illegal. The state legislature, like, no. Well, no. Well, that's another interesting thing. So, I mean, if you're in LA or New York, DC, they do have rent control. And so is that another policy you'd like to see implemented here as well?
Uh, I don't know. On some levels, yes. On some levels, no. Because I'm on both sides, so I see like how it affects the ability to build new units and stuff like that. And ultimately, I think that is what we need to do. Is we just need to build more housing, and that will ease the price increases the more supply we have.
Yeah. And I know, to complement some of what Rick is saying, I know I like to think of what, to your point, as the individual can I do? And I know that there's some amazing work. I know some of it's hubbed around the Wisconsin Policy Forum, but there are individuals that work, organizations like, I think, the Young Entrepreneur Society. One of their founders is he's working on affordable housing. And so having those perspectives. And so I think as people, like you said, are looking to invest or develop, looking at some of those organizations that are looking at the sustainability, the environmental. And so not just looking at necessarily a projected return, but also, can I get my projected return combined with a sustainable investment? There are those types of organizations that really need thought leaders. And so a lot of the people that have that flexibility to invest can offer some sort of perspective from their fields of what they've been doing to, I'd say, really help in terms of sustainable investments, because that's really the direction it has to go. It's got to be, if you align more with the policy side or governmental side of things, putting energy and understanding there. But if you align more with the private side of things, and I know it's someone well, I do, really understanding the landscape of how you can, the term I like to use is conscious capitalism, how you can help be a supporter of that from like a sustainability side of things, because ultimately they both have to work together.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
I got just a little bit more. I think Ayrton kind of made me spur some thoughts. So we have at MKE Black, we have 7 guiding principles, and they're the 7 principles of Kwanzaa. And one of them is Ujama, which is cooperative economics. And so as we move forward, we want to think about how we can do more to promote cooperative economics in the Black community, but in general. And so thinking about one of the things I know is more popular in like New York and other cities around the country, especially outside of the country, though, is housing cooperatives. And so as a means of maintaining housing affordability, not MKE Black directly, but myself, I'm thinking about how can we help to develop more affordable cooperative housing where the housing is owned, by community members or by the people who live in the building. And so if it was like a duplex or a fourplex, the 4 units own the building as a whole, as opposed to each of them paying some landlord who probably lives who knows where. But even then, that can apply to business as well, as we try to look at how can we develop businesses cooperatively, and things like corner stores, really getting at what I was talking about earlier about how there's so much outside investment in the community. How can we come together as a community so that we are owning corner stores and gas stations, and then working our way up the industry chain and down the industry chain in terms of eventually getting to, complete supply chain control, where we have ownership of a mine and then ownership of a factory and stuff like that as a community, so that we can build that community wealth.
Right. And it starts with the business, and then, you can, as the business grows, you can invest in those outside supply chains. Would an example of something like that working be the Sherman Phoenix, in your opinion?
I'll jump in to say they're really moving in that direction, because I know they just got a investment to, again, focus on technology and development. And so if you look at the Sherman Phoenix, initially, I know the first thing was just aggregation of businesses in a space. And so I'm not as familiar with the exact ownership structure, but I know that they're looking at more of that vertical approach to try and see from at least the supply chain perspective. And there are certain initiatives that they do. There's a Kujichagulia market that will take place and happen. And so that's businesses working together. And I think the thing that MKE Black is excited about is we've gotten to work with Black businesses, but also Asian-owned businesses, white-owned businesses that have really started adopting some of that cooperative approach of, even if it's like, hey, let's combine your audience, my audience, multiply them together and see if it's just a one-time thing or if this is something ongoing we want to do. And the network we've been working to build between small business owners and community members of all backgrounds has been really powerful in terms of helping connect people to, I'd say, really honest approaches. But that was a long-winded yes, but yeah, yes.
Yeah. And we've seen over the past year, we've seen the protests. There's been some intentional divisions between, the Black Lives Matter side and the All Lives Matter. So, we've put up these intentional divisions politically through news, all that sort of stuff. In the Midwest, we've got this thing like that I make fun of in a lot of videos, or, parody, and it's Midwest nice. It's kind of a be nice first, ask questions later kind of deal. Do you see that playing out culturally, or do you see it as we got a long way to go of just getting from your average person, just that be nice first, ask questions later kind of deal?
I would say yes, in the regard that a lot of the serious conversations won't happen until you really have an honest conversation. And I'll just use a little example, even within MKE Black. Like, somebody had to tell me that my emails were basically they were too structured like a bulleted list versus like saying, hey, here's why this can matter to you. Like somebody, and it was like awkward for 2 months because I was sending these basically it could have been like the robot that doesn't answer the 7ACP, right? Like that thing you type in. And so it wasn't really getting any heart. And so then it took somebody not being Midwest nice to be like, yo, your emails suck. Like, let's work on this kind of thing. And so it's just even little things like that, where if you expound it to some of these greater issues where it's division, it's like, hey, I really don't understand, or hey, I honestly kind of disagree. Can we talk about it? And not being Midwest nice doesn't mean that you're not being respectful or considerate. It's just having that like, hey, we're not seeing eye to eye. Like, let's at least rap about it. And then maybe you walk away with 10% more overlap kind of thing. So it's understanding, what was it, that be niceness and kindness aren't necessarily the same thing. So
interesting. Yeah, that's well said.
I agree. And my first thought was like, it depends on what space we're talking about. Online, things are different online. But in person, I find that Midwest nice definitely prevails. And like Ayrton said, it takes a certain kind of person who's willing to make the room uncomfortable so that we can have these uncomfortable conversations. But it's out of these uncomfortable conversations that we grow to understand other people and to understand where they're coming from, and hopefully achieve some kind of compromise or understanding or whatever it is that we need to come to. And it makes me think of my previous role before I'm at where I was at now. We did something called a silent canvas, and that was where we invited folks from who weren't a part of the community. And as we went out and knocked doors and talked to people about their issues and concerns, they were with us, but they couldn't talk. And so they just had to listen. This usually applied to like elected officials, but we had all kinds of people come and do it. And so people and elected officials who weren't from Milwaukee, had no idea what Milwaukee was like, got a firsthand experience of what these people were going through and what the community looked and felt like. And it was just a completely different experience for them. And it really opened their eyes to, oh, wow, we have these same issues in my community. And, this feels like this, and I didn't think it would look like this, or it's just surprised people how people like people were. And so once we broke down that barrier, and once we had that uncomfortable conversation of like, look, rural issues, urban issues, we all kind of going through the same thing. We just kind of have different perspectives on it and see the solution as being two different things, but maybe we can come together and figure something out.
Yeah, and I think that goes again to the sort of familiarity thing. I sometimes I tell people when I'm doing shows like they're like, oh, where do you live? I'm like, I'm in Milwaukee. They're like, oh, geez. I'm like, well, if that's your first reaction, like Milwaukee's a big place, and so they're taking the whatever crime story they've heard on the news and they're applying it to everything. And I almost wonder is like, there's all these issues on racism and everything. And like how much is racism and how much is just a lack of familiarity, and both do exist. But I think a big part of at least the folks I'm talking is just a complete lack of familiarity or experience with people from a different culture.
Yeah, I would echo that. I think the basis, probably not seeing them as two separate things, but like really the basis of racism comes from that lack of familiarity, that, fear of what you don't know, and then applying whatever negative perceptions that you've been exposed to. All those combined create racism in a sense. And then you add power and other stuff, it makes it so that it has negative outcomes. But the basis of it is ultimately like unfamiliar, that familiarity.
I can't say it either.
Right.
Too many L's in that word.
Right.
Okie dokes, folks. Excuse the interruption, but I want to tell you about the pride of Random Lake, Wisconsin. That's Jolly Good Soda, the best gosh darn soda this side of the Mississippi. It is so good. I put it in every single brandy old fashioned I got, but it's also good for a midday treat. And if you're looking where to get it, just go to any grocery store in Wisconsin and you ask the manager, hey, where's the Jolly Good? He'll point it to you. If you're not in Wisconsin, you can order it from jollygoodsoda.com. Folks, I also want to shout out another great Wisconsin company. That's Duluth Trading Company, featuring the Double Flex Denim. Double Flex Denim gives you double the flexibility of regular jeans plus the built-in crouch gusset. Okay, it's the most freeing denim you've ever worn, so set your spirit and your nether region soaring. Finally, we got the holidays coming up, and what better gift to give your loved ones than something that says watch out for deer, or ope, or keep her moving, or a cribbage board. We got dice cups. We got a whole bunch of stuff. We even got ugly Christmas sweaters up there. One says watch out for reindeer. Another says oak Christmas tree. We got fishing lures and the whole deal. Everything for all your loved ones this holiday season. It's made in the U.S. and printed in Wisconsin, and you can find it on Cripescast.com. Where do you hope this goes? You've obviously done a lot in the past couple of years. Where do you want to see this go in 5 years?
Yeah, if I could touch on it, I know that Rick and I are both excited. We understand that we have some different professional roles to play. So looking to find those people that really can take the full reins in terms of like seeing this as a full functioning organization. And I think something that MKE Black, again, offers that's a bit different is how much it empowers the individual and depends on them, like makes them an active part. It's not just giving to MKE Black isn't the only way to support MKE Black, which is what's so powerful about what we're doing. And really, a lot of times, I know we mentioned organization of 9 volunteers, but sometimes it can feel like we're an organization of 8,000 people every time somebody downloads the app. It's just adding one more person to the team. And really being able to build on that energy, that vibe, and also keep our idea of taking parts that already exist, because there are so many great organizations doing amazing things, and just helping paint a picture, landscape, and know that, hey, I'm Joe Schmo trying to start a business. I need to talk to MKE Black first, but then I can daisy chain over here once I hit this level of revenue or have a second employee. It's just that ability to, I'd say, keep developing social capital to where people can know, even without us, who they need to go talk to, and keeping that feeling that people understand that when they download the app, they're joining a team and really part of something, and really embodying that to say it's an organization that's integral to people, but the people are integral to the organization as well.
That's great. And that's sort of a low barrier of entry too. I mean, even if you may not have money or resources now, just downloading that app, that in and of itself helps.
Absolutely.
And then, and then sitting on your phone, you may not look at it for a month, but then all of a sudden you're like, oh, wait, you see it sitting there, you do something. So that's really a genius concept there. Just give someone an easy way in. Yeah.
And to that point, we want to upgrade the app to make it more interactive and more functional. And so we want to do things like add online ordering, add more functionality to where you can see hours of businesses and things like that. So we want to continue to upgrade the app and add more details to it so that it can be something that people interact with on a daily basis. And if you want to find, I want to find a pair of shoes, bam, go to the app, order it. It's, there in a couple of days. And my high-end vision, like this probably isn't 5 years, but probably like in 10 years or something like that. Who knows? I envision a storefront, right? Like kind of like the Kujichagulia Collective was doing to a certain extent. This is a location in Sherman, Phoenix. But I'm thinking like, okay, if a person wanted to buy a Black-owned toothpaste and a Black-owned toilet paper, there's really nowhere to go except for online. So I would love to have like a corner store type place that would be just all your everyday consumables from different Black consumers or Black vendors, maybe from Milwaukee, but probably all over the country. And so that's a vision I have. That who knows when and how that happens, but long term, way down the road.
That's awesome.
Being able to see businesses and then also individuals engaging with MKE Black take feedback and say that, oh, I have a chance of working with the Bucks. If I get my email response time down to 24 hours, I get somebody that can handle my accounting, and I also talk to somebody with a legal idea. And there are resources that will do that at low cost to free. And so helping understand that I'm ready or I can engage at a new level as a business owner. I just have to make some investments, some steps, because I think it's so powerful. Because Charlie, one thing I loved when we emailed you, like instantly pulled Colleen in to be able to help out and kind of coordinate. It's that openness and open-heartedness to work with other people, because you realize that, again, bringing in others isn't additive, it can be multiplicative. And so kind of setting those standards of, I want to reach this next level, here's what I need to invest in, kind of thing. And that richness of education from action is something that I see that we can really provide for businesses as well as we continue to do what we do.
Absolutely. And if there is a young Black professional just looking to get going, what recommendations would you have for them?
Ask questions and be willing to get no's. I think a lot of times it's understanding that in the landscape, I know it's there's plenty of data to say it's most comfortable to ask somebody that looks like you or has had success like you. In a lot of situations for people that this is for women, this is for transgender, this is for racial dynamics, sometimes you're going to have to ask for help from people that don't look like you, particularly because there might be fewer people along that path, and having that willingness. And I say a way to start really preparing that is like thinking at your level, thinking who you're surrounding yourself with, just kind of diversifying that space, because it really is a two-way street. It's you have to push your way into some areas to be able to have that conversation, but doing it in a safer setting can make it easier when you're asking that, oh, I'm trying to start on this entire path. And then I would say, I don't even think of it as networking, but just legitimately, when you talk to someone, give them your attention and think, if there's anything that is in my power to help them, what can I do? Even if it's an introduction to someone else. And having conversations like that, it almost feels like you accidentally get helped out at the end. Like really listening to how can I add value and make this person's life better, I'd say is something that a lot, we constantly hill and valley, because it's so easy to get caught in your own race, but understanding that we're all running it together and really having that ability to pick up somebody else, I think is one of the most invaluable skills that anyone could have. And I would say to any Black professional starting that it's essential.
Rick, anything to add to that?
I would just absolutely echo everything Ayrton said, like the power of just getting to know people and not being afraid to ask for help or to just ask for that connection and knowledge. I remember when I was first getting started in organizing, I connected with a local alderwoman, and just told her, hey, this is what I'm interested in. This is what I want to do. And she offered me, kind of an internship in her office. And I worked in her office later that summer. And that pretty much was the springboard for the rest of my organizing career. And that just started with an email to her office asking her to come speak at this event we were having in high school or something like that. And then we talked some more and it just went from there. But also, we have a resource for folks in Milwaukee or in the Wisconsin metropolitan area. We have resources on our website that connects folks to a variety of different organizations who do all of the great work around supporting business development, from folks who will help write business plans to folks who will help figure out what your financing needs are, and just, tap into those resources and really just take it one day at a time. Figure out what can you do today to advance your mission or your goal. Understanding that, we're trying to build starships in the sky and it's not going to happen overnight. And so just, take it one day at a time, connect with who you can, and, utilize the resources that are available.
Yeah, that's all great advice. Is there anything that I didn't ask during this that you think I should have, or anything else you guys want to say?
I would take that individual concept of teaming and think about it with your business as well. If you have a side hustle going on, if you're trying to pivot into something new, if there's truly something that you think could get you to the next level, taking that bet on yourself, and even if it's starting with asking questions to see how you could get help or how you could partner with somebody, like we're never going to be able to get more time in a day. But if you're doing more stuff you really enjoy doing and can trade it with somebody that maybe they enjoy doing the stuff that you don't like, it can just be absolutely game changing. I mean, that's what I love really about MKE Black, is that even though we're only able to get 5 or so hours, what we've been able to accomplish just by being like, I have no idea how to do this, I need your help, has been incredible. And it's that ability to just kind of say, I'm going to be wrong a lot, I need help, but here's how I can help, is I think if you can answer those questions for yourselves and put yourself in that space, that is invaluable for an individual, a business owner. And I think a perfect example of that is another thing is you'll never know who's going to want to talk to you. Because, I mean, we got the opportunity to reach out and, fortunately you were open to having a conversation. And so it's just that world of just like, sometimes people want to chat with you and really cool things can happen.
That's absolutely true, because I struggle with that a lot, even of just like, I don't know why they're going to want to talk to me, and I even had that self-doubt. I got a lot of it. And I think that's just a universal thing. So just pushing through to like reach out. What's the worst that can happen? You get a no. And that goes to your point. Be okay with hearing no. And I think that's perfect. This was awesome, fellas. Anything else to add before we wrap this up?
Yeah, I'll just add, check out our website, www.mkeblack.org. Also follow us on, our socials, all of them are at MKE Black Inc. And just, continue to follow us, check out all the great news and things that are happening. And of course, if you are able to, donate.
Yeah, we have a campaign that is shared on all of our socials. And again, it's to help build that next life cycle. And we actually have some live events coming up as well that you can check out on social as well, at a couple again of ally breweries that want to help us out and keep us going in the right direction. So really excited to be part of the community here and keep plugging away. So thanks everyone.
It's awesome. I love it. And if you send over that link, I think we can find too. But if you just want to send that over to Colleen, we'll get that in the show notes and everything like that. So
that would be perfect. I also want to say Giving Tuesday is coming up. I'm not sure if this will come out before Giving Tuesday, but consider the official nonprofit MKE Black for your Giving Tuesday needs.
That's awesome. It's going to come out the week right after, but it doesn't need to be Giving Tuesday just to give. So everybody do your thing and pretend it's Giving Tuesday.
Exactly. Imagination is really what we wanted you to walk away with. So treat it as Giving Tuesday.
That's awesome. Well, thank you both for coming on. I really appreciate it. And watch out for deer. Okay, they're running around. The rut is on. Okay, so
absolutely
gotta end it this time of year by saying that.
Appreciate you having us. Thank you.
Oh yeah, no, I appreciate you.
Happy holidays.
All right, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And that's it for this week's episode of the Cripescast. Make sure you download the MKE Black app. Just give it a search in the deal or check out mkeblack.org. You can also follow them on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at MKE Black Inc. That's at MKE BLACK INC. Also, make sure you're following Cripescast at Cripescast, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Come see me this week in Green Bay. I'd love to say, hey there, how you doing? All right, everyone, keep her moving. Watch out for deer, and as always, go Packers and the Bears.
So roll out the barrel and get the band brewing. Life's got you down, just keep her moving. It's on Wisconsin, the Badgers say it's the old Wisconsin Jubilee.
You know, sometimes when you're ice fishing, you put your foot in the walleye hole and go ass over tea kettle and you think you're done. No, you gotta keep her moving.